Hey class, welcome to Abroad Sex Education, the sex education you deserve that actually makes sense. Have you ever learned your attachment style but had no idea what it actually means? In today's office hours, we're breaking down attachment theory, how attachment styles develop, where they come from, and what they really mean for you. I'm your host and academic on attachment theory, Sin. And today, my co-host is Brooklyn.
Hey.
Hello. Ready for this?
I am very excited for this episode.
I know. This really only came up because of your suggestion.
Well, last time when you had me on, I was like, we were just talking in general, and I was like, it sounds like some avoidant shit, and we should bring it up.
Well, now we're bringing it up.
We're bringing it up. I love it. And what a teacher's pet I am.
This podcast is a sex education resource intended for an adult audience. We have real, inclusive conversations about human sexuality, pleasure, relationships, gender, identity, and more. Some topics may feel explicit or sensitive. In today's lesson, we'll be discussing abuse, including experiences that can impact both children and adults, such as physical, emotional, and psychological harm. Our goal is to break the stigma and offer the kind of sex education many of us never got. We're learning too, and we're bringing what we learn here so we can all grow together. You deserve to know what this is about, so you can make an informed choice to listen, or not. That's what consent looks like, even here. So, attachment theory. We're talking about this because this is something we wanted to talk about, I guess.
And I feel like it's a hot topic on a lot of podcasts and like on the internet. I think I might be biased because I get a lot of, when I had Instagram, I would get people sending me a lot of attachment stuff.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends that talk about it a lot. So I think it's a very prevalent topic. I don't know. I could be just a biased person in my circle of friends.
Yeah. I think it's something that's gotten a lot more notoriety now with obviously social media. But I think that social media uses it as a way to put people in boxes, as like a label them, like a Myers-Briggs type of definition, or like a Hogwarts house or a horoscope.
It's less exciting than the Hogwarts house. Gryffindor, represent.
That's the issues that I have with it, is that it's treated as this label that you can't get away from.
Yeah, and a lot of things that I've read or heard have said, you know, your attachment style can change. I think mine has changed over the years. And you can like get out of whatever one you're in if it's not a healthy one or whatever. And then I also feel like within attachment styles, that also can be a spectrum of like how avoidant a person is. They could be maybe just like mildly avoidant or like very extremely avoidant.
Yeah, because it also depends on the dynamic with the other person.
Right. I always say that, I'm so smart. I always say this to people that like, depending who you're interacting with, I think all of us lean to have like more avoidant or anxious tendencies depending on how the other person responds to you.
Yeah, unless they're secure, then you're just like, well.
Then they're not real.
They don't exist.
Yeah. That's like Chris Hemsworth probably. He's Henry Cavill.
I know one secure person, and
IRL?
Yeah.
Who?
Asa.
Oh.
And they're very...
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to sit here and think a long time. I don't know if I know any secure people.
Yeah. Okay.
I know people that lie on the test.
Yeah.
That's what
I would say I am a securely attached person.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading into it a lot more, and I can see what I've done in past relationships and why the anxious attachment style I had was triggered in specific relationships. But I do think that overall, I've started to lean more in a secure relationship. But that was because I was very conscious of my attachment style and was working through it.
And I am pretty sure, I'm reading a book right now called Hold Me Tight, and I think this is where I got this information. I could be wrong. Could be something I've read before. But I'm pretty sure it was there. It says if like an anxious person, for example, is in a relationship with a securely attached person, then they do become less anxious because the secure person is, you know, being healthy, and they're kind of like training into that.
Yeah. I knew I had an anxious attachment style, and it was triggered a lot in previous relationships, especially in my last relationship, which now I know it was a disorganized attachment style.
Oh, your last one was disorganized?
Yeah, he was disorganized. And I remember having to like self-soothe and be conscious of my emotions. Even when we broke up, I was like, I'm gonna be fine, like it's okay. Like as sad as I was that the relationship ended at the time, I was also like, it's over now, like I can move on and stuff. Versus in a relationship with Asa. He's like secure. The anxious never got triggered because it was like with a secure person.
Mm-hmm.
Even the moments where there have been somewhat triggering, like there was a time when Asa was in Japan last year and I didn't hear from him all day.
When he was sick.
Yeah, when he was sick. And I was like, are you dead?
Yeah.
Like I was so concerned.
He was close. Yeah.
Just literally in Tokyo Disney, laying on a bench trying to fall
Close to
asleep.
death. Yeah. And you were like, excuse me, I have needs.
Yeah. Which it's so cute because even afterwards he's like, I'm so sorry. I should have done something. I should have let you know. I was like, well, at least you're soothing my anxious attachment style by also recognizing that while after the fact, of course, I'm like, oh, you were sick. I completely understand.
Right.
And he was like, oh my God, I made you anxious. I'm so sorry. I promise not to do that again, you know?
Yeah. Well, and so it was interesting, a couple of things that you said. One is, it's interesting to me that you were anxious that he was dead. You were not anxious that he was like, had met a woman in Japan and was like having a fling.
No.
So that's interesting. And then also, I have read that anxious people, I'm not anxious, but I've read that anxious people handle breakups and rejection really well because a part of them is always kind of anticipating it. So they handle it better and bounce back faster than other people.
Yeah. I've been told I've bounced back from relationships pretty well. My best friend from NorCal says it all the time. Like, you're always able to, like, pick yourself back up from it.
You're like a little bumper car.
Yeah. It's like, it's fine.
Good to go.
Yeah. I think in my situation, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ready to get into...
I am so ready.
All right. So, what is attachment theory just in general? So, I'm just going to break it down first in what is attachment. So, attachment is the bond that shapes how you experience connection, safety, and relationships. And attachment theory specifically is a psychological framework that explains how early relationships with caregivers shape our patterns of connection, behavior, and emotional regulation throughout life. Specifically within attachment theory, there's different attachment styles. They fall into two categories. There's secure attachment, then there's insecure attachment styles. There are 3 different insecure attachment styles, but originally there was only 2.
Yeah, I had read that the third one was added on later. They realized they needed to have that.
Yeah, because we got fucked up even worse.
They're like, this person, we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the very basic, which most people know this from online videos. But where did it come from? So in 1935, there was an Austrian zoologist, ethologist, and ornithologist. An ethologist is a person who studies non-human animal behavior, and an ornithologist studies birds. So Konrad Lorenz studied these geese, specifically those ones in the picture.
Very cute geese.
Yeah. He studied these geese, and when they were born, the first thing they saw move, they would imprint on and treat like their mother.
Oh, okay.
So they would follow them around, and that was really important. Within the first 13 to 16 hours, that study is what inspired the attachment theory today.
Okay.
So the guy who is also in the picture in this presentation, this is John Bowlby. He was a founder of attachment theory, a psychoanalyst, and a psychologist from Britain. He was inspired by Lorenz's study on geese, and he wanted to apply that into humans. So he was the one that began the framework and published the paper in 1958 about attachment theory, and it had the 3 types of attachment styles: secure, anxious, and avoidant. Then he partnered with a woman in Canada named Mary Ainsworth. She's a Canadian-American developmental psychologist. She developed the strange situation experiment, which we'll get into in the next slide.
Is that with monkeys?
No, it's
Okay.
with babies.
Oh, with human babies.
With human
Oh,
babies.
this sounds not moral at all. The study I was thinking of was with monkeys.
No.
Oh, is it the one that I'm sorry, I'm derailing this. I think I've heard of it, and I thought this was the origins of attachment styles, like when they're in a room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm spoiling everything. Go ahead.
Yeah. Mary Ainsworth had a protege. Her name was Mary Main. She was a professor and psychologist at UC Berkeley, and she developed the 4th attachment style, the disorganized attachment.
Yay.
Yeah. The strange situation experiment was an observational experiment that usually lasts about 3 minutes. It was designed to observe how infants responded to the separation and reunion with their caregiver and how that related to their sense of safety and attachment.
And we're going to see a video of this?
We're going to see a video
I'm
of
thrilled.
when they do it. I'm going to just show you the video. I'm not going to put the video on in the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's going to be linked in the description if anyone wants to watch the video. But I will go through the steps of it. So the premise of the experiment before we watch the video is they would have a mother and a child in a room that was filled with toys. The room had a one-way mirror so that the people observing could just watch. So the first step was the mother and infant would be alone in the room, and then a stranger would come in. The mother would leave the baby and the stranger alone. They were looking to see how the baby would respond when the mother would leave. Once we talk about each attachment style, I'll say like what the baby's response was in those.
I'm interested to see if me, who's never seen these videos, but I know obviously about it, if I'll be able to tell who's what.
The video talks about the study and it shows one example of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very long. It's only a 3-minute video.
Okay.
After the mother left the stranger and the baby alone, the mother would return and then the stranger would leave. The mother ends up leaving again and then the child is left alone.
Okay.
And then the stranger returns and then the mother returns and the stranger leaves.
Okay. So I don't think when I had read about this and all of this, I don't think I realized the stranger was involved at all. I think I just thought there was like a mother, a child, the parent leaves the room and then comes back and they were studying like how the child responded when the parent came back, but I didn't realize there was anybody else in the room.
Yeah. From what I remember, it was to see how a child would interpret the unfamiliar face.
That makes sense because of the imprinting of the geese.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch the video.
Well, there's one of the rare ones.
Yeah.
I was like, this is borderline child abuse. We are just abandoning a child in a room again and again. Like, we know she's going to be upset. We know that.
Yeah, but
Good for her. The other ones did not fare as well, I assume.
How they respond during the reunion was what they're looking for.
Right. I was proud of myself that I could figure out she was secure because she instantly like calmed the second that her mother was there. So I was like, okay, she's safe with her mother.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Right. At least one of us was.
Exactly. Must be nice, Lisa. Also, a baby named Lisa is so weird. I was like, Lisa, really?
We all can't have a mother like Lisa's mom. So that's the strange situation experiment. But now we're going to go into the different types. There's 4 different types of attachment styles. The first one is secure, and it's usually developed in warm and nurturing environments where children's emotional needs are met. Anxious attachment styles are also known as preoccupied, and it's often developed from inconsistent parenting patterns. And then avoidant dismissive is developed when a child perceives that their basic emotional needs are not met. Avoidant is also known as dismissive attachment as well. Disorganized attachment is also known as fearful avoidant, which is believed to be the result of childhood trauma or abuse or witnessing abuse of a caregiver. That's just very preliminary. But we'll start with secure attachment. Wow. Secure attachment.
This is your moment, secure people.
Yeah. I also consider myself someone that is securely attached now. And I think I was securely attached before I had met Asa. I just think...
Yeah. Well, because everybody's trying to get to secure.
Right.
And so even if you are somebody listening that's not in a secure attachment style, you still work on getting there.
Yeah.
You can change your style.
Just because your parents mess you up doesn't mean you can't fix it. Okay.
For all things.
For any parents out there that want to make sure their children have a secure attachment style, these are the following conditions that are necessary for that to happen. A child must feel safe. They must feel seen and known. A child must feel comfort, soothing, and reassurance. They should feel valued and be supported to explore. I'm also trying to be conscious of saying like a person with this attachment, because to say
they're not a secure person.
Yeah. It's completely different. Yeah. People with secure attachment styles are more self-contented, social, warm, and easy to connect to. They're able to regulate their emotions and express their feelings. They have strong goal-oriented behavior on their own. They're great at bonding, opening up, and trusting others. They can communicate effectively. They're comfortable with closeness and mutual dependency. They actively seek emotional support from their partner and are able to give that emotional support back when their partner needs it. They feel comfortable being alone, and they have a strong capacity to reflect about themselves when they're in a relationship.
So I noticed that a lot of these are like really good flattering qualities. And I hope the other slides also talk about like the anxious and avoidant and the disorganized flattering qualities.
Well, I
And you're trying to set me up. Don't get too excited about that part because there's more.
I don't know how flattering
The other ones will be.
if this is the goal.
I'm like, these are good qualities, like independence, they're goal oriented, they can communicate well.
Yeah.
I would like to think I'm those things, but I'm not securely attached.
We talked about earlier, like you are securely attached in some relationships.
Oh, we did talk about this earlier.
Versus
Okay.
others.
Can we take a minute and talk about that on the
Sure.
podcast? Because I feel like what we were saying earlier is that in romantic relationships, I have one attachment style. In platonic friendships, I feel very secure and safe with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I feel great in that relationship. So I feel like I do have multiple attachment styles in different situations.
Yeah.
Is that normal? Are other people doing that too?
I think that's normal. I think because I've always felt like securely attached with my friends.
Right, same.
And not so much with a partner when I was growing up. But I think it's also slightly different in romantic relationships because that dynamic where this is your partner, it's a little different than a friend who's just going to be there to support you and just like be there for you and to talk with you through shit.
Yeah.
The stakes aren't as high because it's not like you're choosing to live your life and blend your life and blend your finances and get married and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
I feel like I'm going to sound really avoidant when I say this, but I feel like with a partner, you have to think about like this person is really like becoming a part of my identity as a couple. Like that's a new identity and I have to decide if I'm okay accepting that new person as that. And that can be really scary and intimidating and like, ooh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But like friends, you're like, this is my friend. And
Yeah.
it's great. She's like my family, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah. Before me and Asa even met and I was writing in my manifestation journal, I
Yeah.
was like, I want a friends to lovers relationship. Because to me, that's like, friends is already an environment you feel safe and you could build that. I do think I've met securely attached people in my dating life that because I was young and I was in my 20s, it wasn't passionate or exciting that I thought it was just like they were boring.
There wasn't a spark.
Yeah, but it was like they were just a securely attached person that was nice and like calming, you know?
And that can be really hard to interpret as if you're not securely attached, and especially when you're young and you haven't seen a healthy relationship. You're like, this person's just not into me.
Right.
That's what it comes off as.
Yeah.
I think the friends to lovers, what you're talking about, it's also interesting because I feel like you want somebody that is going to be your friend because eventually, like if that's your partner and that's your person, eventually looks are going to fade and all you'll have is your personalities together, right? So you want somebody that is truly your friend. But when I am dating somebody and I don't feel the vibe and I say like, I just want to be friends, and then they're like, no, thank you. I don't like that because I'm like, what do you mean? My personality's awesome. Like, why would you not want to be my friend? But then vice versa, when we've been dating and they're like, I don't think we should date, let's be friends. I'm like, no, why would I be your friend?
I think it's because when you've already started with dating, it's hard to go back from that.
Right, to take a step. I agree with that.
I personally don't like that because in heterosexual relationships, it feels like you're keeping tabs on me, you know?
I think if you were friends, then you started dating and then you decide to go back to friends, that's different.
Right.
Then we are dating and now we're going to try to be friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have very particular high standards for my friends, also for dating. But my friends, I hold to a really high standard because I know I'm a great friend. So I need them to also be a great friend. And I might be actually more forgiving, I think, of people I'm dating than I am of friends. So I think when they're like, let's be friends, and I'm like, you're not actually up to par.
You wouldn't be
You
a
can cut
good
that
enough
out.
friend for me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's valid. So there's 3 clues to spot if someone is a secure adult.
Oh, I love that we have clues.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if they have a positive self-view on themselves, if they have a positive self-view of others, and then a positive view of their childhood. And when I say that positive view of their childhood, it's not to say that they'd be like, oh, everything was fine, I had no struggles. It's not to say that. It's that they're able to recognize maybe my childhood wasn't always the greatest, but I can look back and like appreciate what I've learned from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like as crazy as my childhood was and weird as it was, I'm very grateful that it has made me into who I am.
Right. When it came to the strange situation experiment, a child with a secure attachment demonstrates distress when they're separated from their caregiver, but they're easily soothed by them when they return. They show a preference to their parent over the stranger, but they're able to engage with the stranger. They will explore freely and refer back to the secure base when they're uncertain. Ellen isn't anxious. This is where mine went. So, anxious attachment, and I thought that picture was hilarious.
Is that actually a photo of you from childhood?
No, but I was like, that looks like it could have.
Right?
This is also known as preoccupied or anxious ambivalent attachment. They're often developed from misattuned or inconsistent parenting patterns. They can also be developed from emotional hunger from caregivers, and emotional hunger is when a caregiver seeks emotional and physical closeness with their child to satisfy their own needs rather than their child's needs.
So that would be like, let's say your parents are getting divorced and then they like need you to comfort them, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or when I've heard some people be like, I want to have a kid because who's going to love you more than a kid?
Yeah, or like, I don't need friends because I'll have a kid and I'll force that one to like me. And you're like, what? No, don't do that.
Yeah. An additional thing that can cause anxious attachment, but it's less common, are abuse, physical or psychological, or early separation from a caregiver.
Like foster care or something, like permanent separation.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that would lead to avoidant more than anxious.
I think it could also be like if it was a situation where, like, say they had like one caregiver, but then the other one like took them away because like maybe there was like a negative situation between them. Or
that makes sense.
You know?
Yeah.
People with anxious attachment styles have the following characteristics. They think highly of others but suffer from low self-esteem. They're sensitive and attuned to partners' needs, but they struggle with their own self-worth. Rejection causes them to feel unworthy of love. They need constant and reassurance that they are loved, worthy, and good enough. They have a strong fear of abandonment. They can be desperate, clingy, or preoccupied with their relationship, and they have difficulty being alone and will often settle for relationships that may not be the most beneficial, like a situationship.
Mm-hmm. I have a friend that is very anxious. That a lot of these fit her, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Very anxiously attached.
Yeah. And as someone that was anxiously attached, it was super freaking annoying.
I also read, I'm pretty sure this was in a book called Detached that I read twice because it was really good. But I believe it was in that book, she talks a lot about once you take away the anxious side of an anxiously attached person, they are actually much better at interpreting cues and reading people's emotions than anyone else. So I have a compliment for the anxious style, not just the secure people. That is the flattering of the anxious people.
Yeah. And then also the thing you said where they're able to...
They can bounce back from rejection better than others.
Yeah.
I'm sure better than an avoidant.
Yeah. I think that with anxious attachment style, they're willing to be good partners, but it's also because they want the validation from their partner.
Yeah.
That's why...
Like they're earning love. Is that what an anxious motive is?
Remember how in the last episode we talked about how butterflies can feel like someone is triggering your attachment style? Anxious attachment style and you're dating someone that may be a fearful avoidant or a disorganized avoidant, you could get that butterfly feeling because something in that situation triggered the same dynamic that you had and your caregiver had.
Well, and it's almost like a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
Where you're getting that reinforcement spontaneously and you don't know when.
Yeah.
And so then that's so addictive.
Yeah. Because sometimes your parent was soothing you, and there could be also moments where they're like, get away from me. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like,
Well, that would make sense as to like trying to earn the love and then kind of not really understanding what consistently gets love and what doesn't.
right. For children in the strange situation experiment, the child would display higher levels of distress when the caregiver leaves, but they're not comforted when they return.
How do they react when they return?
Like, they would take a longer time for them to like soothe.
They're having a meltdown for a longer time.
Yeah.
One of the bullet points up here that stands out too is that they can be desperate, clingy, or preoccupied with their relationship. I think, again, that this is very much a spectrum, but some people can be like coming on so strong. Like my friend that I mentioned that has a very anxious attachment. I'm always trying to talk her down from relationships and she is always one date and ready to commit and fully just like drop her hobbies and her identity as to who she is to invest in that fully. So I think that's a really extreme case. And maybe, I mean, you're the expert on here, but I'm assuming there's other people that don't have it that badly, that are not at that level. And so it's easier for them to then correct into the secure zone.
Before I knew attachment style and looking back, reflecting on it now, I definitely would say I was very desperate and really clingy, like wanting to be loved and finding someone to be loved by. It's the same reason why I ended up staying with the ex for 4 years, because like
it was just anyone.
Yeah, it's the same thing of more people just want to have a relationship than they want to actually be in like a healthy and loving relationship.
Yeah.
It's like that element of it.
Okay.
I think that the anxious attachment people are keeping that aspect alive.
Come on, guys, do better.
Yeah. But I do think being sensitive and attuned to the partner's needs was always like really helpful, because I could gauge how they feel or their reactions.
Their emotion, or read their, whatever their micro expressions or whatever it is that they're putting off that anxious people could pick up on.
Yeah. I'm just unloading my traumas at this point. But I think
I'm here for it, Tell girl.
There was always a feeling like I wasn't good enough. But in Tagalog, there's a word called maarte, and it means over the top, like extra, like too much.
In like a bad way?
Yeah, in like a bad way. It's kind of like supposed to be an insult.
Okay.
And so I always felt like too much and not enough at the same time, which was so weird.
Because you had needs, that was too much.
Right.
But then you were not enough to actually have those needs met.
Right.
That makes sense.
It was like those two things always like fighting each other, because there was this sense of you had to be good enough for a relationship, but then when you got a relationship, you had to be less of yourself so you wouldn't be too much. Like, you scare them away because you're acting too
You had to
much.
dim it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But now that's like one of my favorite words in Tagalog, because I'm like, yeah, I'm too much. It's fine.
That's what I was like, did they mean like in a bad way?
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
I have like a necklace that says it. So it's like one of my favorites. But my family said, they're like, why do you have that? And then I'm like, I think it's great. I have Marte and it's fine.
Hell
There's
yeah,
nothing
take
wrong.
it back. It's like, bitch.
Yeah.
We take it back. Claim it. It's
I'm
ours.
reclaiming it. Yeah, exactly.
Not to jump ahead, I am very bad at identifying other people that are anxious. Like, I've been wrong on people that I'm just like friends with in the circle. I would not have guessed that, certain people are anxious. I'm really bad at identifying it. I don't know why. I can only identify it in a romantic setting. That might be the case.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm just bad at this.
I have a theory, but I'm gonna wait until we get to
I'm excited. Okay.
Attachment style.
Okay. Wait, we're getting to the avoidant attachment?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll wait until we get to that point.
Okay.
Before I tell you my theory.
Okay. I'm excited.
If I know the dynamic of a person and their parents, I can pretty much guess a person's attachment style. Because I feel that the whole thing about attachment styles, it's behavior patterns.
There recently was like a theory that came out that parenting has less to do with it, that it was like a biological thing, could have been the reasoning. But then they also were like, well, really, like, romantic relationships can shape your attachment style too. So I think it starts with the parents, and then you kind of seek out familiarity, whether you mean to or not.
Yeah.
And then those kind of change your attachment style or reinforce it depending on what your experiences are.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that it's fluid and that it can change is like a big part of it. I think people who have a tendency to have people pleasing tendencies also lean towards more anxious attachment
For sure.
style.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think the difficulty being alone, when I was very anxiously attached, once something ended, I was already on the apps and like starting to talk to someone else.
Well, even the whole like difficulty being alone, I know people that cannot even be in their apartment alone by themselves. Like they need to be out doing stuff all the time, every waking moment. So when I read that bullet, I didn't even think about people that can't be single. I was thinking of people that cannot spend time with themselves alone. Like they hate being with themselves.
Yeah. Healing for my attachment style was like taking myself out on dates. Because it's a low self-esteem and a low self-worth, I had to learn to build those on my own. I agree with you that it's easier to spot in a romantic setting than it is to spot in like a friend
and the friend setting are from the outside. If
Right.
they're not confiding in you
Right.
about their spirals and their like meltdowns, then I think it is hard.
Yeah. Okay. So avoidant attachment. This is also known as anxious avoidant. Causes of avoidant attachment are when caregivers are strict, emotionally distant, don't tolerate expressions of feelings, and expect their child to be independent and tough. Caregivers back off when their child reaches out for support, reassurance, or affection. People with avoidant attachment styles have the following characteristics. They learn from caregivers that people cannot be relied on. They tend to be independent and have a high self-esteem. They don't rely on others for reassurance or emotional support. They find difficulty developing past surface level bonds. They avoid displays of closeness and intimacy. And they have difficulty letting people in. And they find reasons to end or distance themselves in relationships.
And how did these babies react?
So these babies would show little preference for their caregiver over the stranger. They don't react when their caregiver leaves, and they resist contact with them on their return. They don't show much interest in exploring.
Strong, independent babies.
Yeah.
And a lot of these qualities are like good qualities, like independent, and they have high self-esteem. That's great. And like they don't rely on others for reassurance or emotional support. That's also kind of a really good quality. But those qualities are like, yeah, this is a go-getter. Like, this person's a badass. I'm just noticing the bias towards like complimentary qualities listed on the slide here. But so that's interesting that like they're very close visually on this graphic that I've seen to being secure. And some of their qualities look really great.
Yeah. Well, because, so like if you think about it, secure people like themselves, they like people. Anxious avoidants don't like themselves, but they like people.
Yeah.
Avoidant people like themselves, but they don't like other people.
Yeah.
And then the fearful, disorganized, don't like people, don't like themselves.
So what I've heard very similar to this, the comparison is that avoidant people feel that they are safe. Themselves are their safe space. Anxious people feel that the outside world is the safe space, and the disorganized people feel that neither is safe.
Yeah.
So it's same idea. This one, some of the qualities, especially when I was like late teens, early 20s, I very much identify with a lot of them. Like the finding reasons to end or distance themselves in relationships. I was doing that all the time for like any little thing. So I feel like that's probably also why I'm like, these people seem really cool though, right? Like they have high self-esteem. Everyone should do that. That's great.
Yeah, but then they can't form like...
No, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying I probably have like an unconscious bias where I'm like, they're probably not all bad though.
I know that because this whole entire time you're like, I'm not being personally attacked.
Until now. Well, no, this isn't even my style anymore. I do lean avoidant. I have a lot of avoidant tendencies more than anything. I would say the ones that are really bad for avoidant is the like shutting down instead of like dealing with things. That's like my go-to. And the most problematic for like attachment stuff, for forming any bond with anybody.
What I've learned with avoidant attachment is like there's nothing wrong about them needing to shut down because it's them needing the space to process.
Right.
As someone that was an anxious attachment style at the time, dating someone that was avoidant, like that was the tough one because it was me wanting to fix things versus someone being like, it seems like you need space to process everything. Why don't we like give it a day? We'll talk about it tomorrow or like the next time I see you. If you want to talk about it sooner, we can. But it looks like you really just need space to process it yourself.
Yeah. The way my therapist explained it to me is that you have so much in your head that when something happens, like live in that moment, your brain cannot handle how much has just happened. So it just shuts everything down. So like everything from your past that you haven't figured out yet and everything that's currently happening, it's just numbing you for like protection and security. And then you need like, so I need a lot of time to like process and sort through things. And I know other people that are avoidant that need at least a day, maybe sometimes more, to like figure out and sort through those things. So that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, it's because since they feel safe within themselves, it's like they have to process that in the safety of their mind.
One, there can be avoidant behaviors where you don't want to involve other people and reach out to them because you're going to like cause them upset and everything. And all of that, it does feel unsafe. And so being in yourself and being numb and just closing yourself off, it feels very safe. And the almost like the only way you know how to process things if you are avoidant. Like when I'm going through something tough, I will shut myself in my house and like not go out. Like that's just how I know how to process things. And you don't want to inconvenience other people with your downer, Debbie Downer life.
See, as the anxious avoidant, I want to talk. I'll tell everyone what's going on in my life. I will literally head up all over like this happened. I just need to talk it through. But the thing is like I've already processed it in my head. So it's just me talking it through because it just feels comforting
to have your support, your community. Yeah.
So,
but I think with that, like when people call me with those things and they want to talk it out, I love that. Like I love being there. Again, this is a friend group, right? Like this is easy for me to do because it's my friend group and I feel secure. But I do feel that it's like a burden or a pain in the ass if I'm bringing my problems to somebody else, even if they're not always if they're my friend. Like sometimes they can. If they're, yeah. But I think that's like where it comes from. It's like, oh, they don't want to deal with my shit. That's annoying.
I'm always ready to deal with your shit.
You are. You're the greatest friend.
You said it doesn't necessarily feel always comfortable to talk to other people about it because there's a level of hyper independence that it's like you want to figure it out yourself.
I always describe myself as hyper independent to people in a romantic setting. They'll be like, what are your like red flags? And I'm like, I can be hyper independent. And they don't understand. They're like, that sounds great. That doesn't sound like a problem at all. And I'm like, oh, it will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the hyper independent is exactly how I would describe it.
It's hard when you're trying to solve something in the relationship together.
Yes.
Like that's where the struggle will come.
Well, and just like the independence, having the independence to like go to social events all the time without your partner there. I think you should be able to do that on occasion, but like all the time that you shouldn't be that fine with that. In my past relationships, I've been fine being like, I will go out every weekend without you there because you don't want to be here or you're working or whatever. And I don't think that was actually healthy.
Yeah. Maybe not all the time.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if he could have come sometime.
Right. Like every other weekend or something.
Yeah. You could ask for the time off.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things, but I didn't realize at the time that it wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
You know, like to me, that just seemed like normal. And that was my idea of what was a healthy relationship at the time.
Yeah. When I was doing research for this, one of the like FAQs in the thing I was looking at, this was the actual question. It says, do avoidant attachment men feel love?
Oh, of course they do.
Yeah, if you think about it, the causes says they are emotionally distant, they don't tolerate expressions of feelings or expect their child to be tough, which are all just symptoms of like toxic masculinity and
Right.
socially the men don't cry, men don't express emotions. So I can understand why there's a vast majority of men out there that do have an avoidant attachment style. It's because of
The way they were raised and expected to
yeah.
be. And I think like this interesting point about like caregivers who are strict, emotionally distant, and don't tolerate expressions of feelings. I think even that then puts them in a weird situation where they might not be comfortable expressing their emotions and their feelings because growing up in a house where you're never told like you're not allowed to say I love you because that's weird and vulnerable, and then they're supposed to do that all the time, like that's really uncomfortable for them. But that doesn't mean they don't feel it. It hasn't been okay for them, so they don't know it's okay for them to do now.
Right. Yeah.
I have a close friend that is very avoidant, and one time was super drunk and texted me and was like, I'm very drunk at a wedding, so like don't hold me accountable for what I say or something, whatever. And I was like, okay. And it was just literally like, thanks for being there for me. And that was it. But he had to be shit faced to express that. I was like, oh yeah, sure, dude, anytime. That was how hard it was for him to be vulnerable. So I think that's just like, and reinforces what we were talking about.
Yeah. The next one, disorganized attachment.
Yay!
Also known as fearful avoidant. So the causes of a disorganized attachment style are developed when a child's caregiver becomes the source of fear. The child never knows what to expect from the caregiver or if their needs will be met. And it can be a consequence of childhood trauma or abuse. It can also be a result of witnessing abuse by or from a caregiver. People with disorganized attachment styles tend to want to be loved but are afraid to let people in. They fear the people closest to them will hurt them. They fear intimacy and proximity but want relationships. They expect rejection, hurt, or disappointment. They don't believe their partner will love and support them as they are. Their negative expectations of relationships tend to lead to self-fulfilling prophecies. They have negative views of themselves and others, and they're at higher risk of developing mental health issues.
So I think this is mine now, but I think I am predominantly avoidant. And I think after my marriage and divorce, then that has resulted in me switching over to the disorganized attachment. Specifically, I would say the fear of like rejection, hurt, or disappointment. I think I still have a very secure relationship with my friends, but I think in romantic relationships, I still heavily lean avoidant, but then I do have a little disorganized happening as well.
Yeah, because disorganized is literally just both of the anxious and avoidant attachment style together. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
This one is one of the harder ones to manage.
Yeah.
They mentioned.
Yeah, I can't talk for everybody, but for me, I think I generally am avoidant in most situations. And then there will be something unexpected or spontaneous that can happen, which will then flip me to anxious. And that is unusual for me. Like, I'm not used to that. And so managing it is really hard because I think you're just fluctuating, I guess, between the two. And then when that happens, it's very confusing. And even like what I talked about with the like shutting down and like needing time to process things. If I'm flipped to an anxious moment, whatever version of events has happened, like I still need that same amount of time to process to sort out whether that's a real situation or a real scenario or not.
How I could tell someone has a disorganized attachment style, they're the people who have like walls up. Like it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard to.
Do avoidants not have walls up?
Avoidants have walls up, but they are not to the extent of a disorganized attachment style.
Okay, because I would say I have walls up, and I would say it increased recently since becoming disorganized.
Yeah. I've told you about my ex where it was like his words and his actions weren't aligning.
Oh, yes, that's one. Yeah.
That's the big thing to me. It was like him telling me like, oh, I want you to meet my family. I want you to meet my friends. Like, I want to get married and have this life with you. And I want to develop our relationship more. But then when I was like, when are we going to do all these things that you said we were going to do? My ex was just like, I don't know. Like, I just don't feel like I'm good enough for you. The breakup text was like, I think you deserve better. It's very clearly negative self-view. Because I could see that even when we would be talking, it like feels like that person is holding back. I can understand going from an avoidant to like more disorganized because you did have a relationship where you did open up and all of this stuff.
Right.
And then like, so like that reaction makes sense to then jump.
Right.
to,
Like that I
organized.
experienced something that was like basically like betrayal, right?
Yeah.
It's like a trauma response to that where you're like, I thought and trusted this person so much and I was so wrong about them. How do I then trust somebody else and trust my own instincts?
Right.
Because I was so wrong about that person.
Yeah.
So then I think that's where like the walls come up versus what I notice with avoidance, what they do is they will talk to you often and reach out often, but keep the conversation about surface level things. So they'll talk about like animals or food or something, but like nothing of actual depth. And in this attachment style, it feels, especially when you're dating somebody and you get to the point where you're like, we should be opening up and being vulnerable. And if they're not doing it, then I feel physically tense. The walls you're talking about, I physically feel them on my shoulders, in my body. And so like I get anxious about like, I don't want to open up, but they're not opening up.
Yeah.
And because they're not opening up, then it makes me uncomfortable. And that is a lot of, it's a lot. And then there's walls up and you don't want to let them down. And then after the fact, you're like, why was I being so guarded about that anyways?
Right.
And it actually doesn't make any sense at all. So it's a weird thing to be in. It's a weird dynamic.
Yeah. It makes sense. It is tough. Like, as much as I give my ex shit, I can fully understand how he got to this point. I mean, that's also why I stayed with him for so long. Like, I fully recognized the disorganized attachment style. And there were elements of him trying to work on it. And again, saying he wants these things, but then acting like he's not.
He was his own worst enemy.
Yeah. He ended up breaking up with me because he's like, yeah, you deserve better. And I was just like, you acted like the relationship was going to end pretty much the entire time we were together.
Since day one.
And then you ended it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't.
And he was right.
Yeah.
He ended it.
Which is the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. It's interesting. I'm thinking back now. This is out of order. But what just occurred to me was how you were talking about like the culture of toxic masculinity and avoidance and that link. My dad basically raised me like I was a boy. And so he very much instilled like to be tough and like don't let other people see how much you hurt them and things like that. So I, of course, now I'm like, well, of course I was leaning avoidant because that was like coached into me. And there was probably some disorganized already there. But then because of my like experiences in my adult relationships, I think maybe more of it came out now. So now I'm even further away from the secure part and have to get back there. Great.
You're working on it.
Yeah.
So my theory on top of this theory.
Oh, I didn't realize there was. I thought you already said it. I'm excited now. Go ahead.
So my theory of this obviously has to do with parents because I said blame your parents.
Yes.
Right. If you have a anxious avoidant parent or a anxious, fearful parent, it's possible that your parents had those parents. It's just a generational trauma.
Right. I mean, that is really interesting because when we talk about attachment styles in general, especially on like Instagram or whatever, we're mostly talking about them in romantic settings. But if you're an avoidant parent, are you not being avoidant to your child? Or if you're an anxious parent, are you not being anxious to your child? Right?
You're still anxious and avoidant towards your child. Yeah. So my theory is that people with secure attachment styles are the people who wanted to have kids and like who chose to have kids and really like it meant something for them to nurture and care for the child to the best of their ability. And like they brought life into the world because they wanted to do it.
They wanted to be an involved parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think people who have an anxious attachment style are people who had children because they socially felt like they had to have children. Not because they were like fully ready, but it was just more of like a pressure of like, oh, this is what we have to do kind of thing. But I do think with anxious avoidant parents, it's people who also just didn't want to be parents.
Yeah.
Like
or they thought they did, and then they were like, wait, this is what parenting is. I didn't want this.
It's like having it and be like, oh, this was the worst idea ever. Why did I have a kid?
Resentment.
Right. Disorganized attachment. That's an abusive home. My personal theory, not any sociological or psychological backing. But I think that's I think that's why I think I can gauge where people fall
Uh-huh.
based on whatever like their relationship with their parents are.
Yeah. What does mine make sense then?
Yeah. So when you've dated, have you dated mostly
I
disorganized or avoidant
I
or
mostly date avoidant. I also think because like when you're in your 20s, more of the attachment styles are in the dating pool, and then as you get older, people that are secure are getting married in secure relationships and staying with those people, right?
yeah.
So then as time goes on, there's just a lot of avoidance left. So I think that is how that happened.
Mhm.
I have dated one secure person, I think. He was like in medical school and then he went away to do his residency. And then he hit me back up when he came back after he'd finished that. And I was like, oh, I was like with my ex. Big mistake. I guess I've done the spectrum. But the secure ones did confuse me back in the day.
How did you navigate avoidant attachment style with an avoidant attachment? How do you think that dynamic is different? And like, what is your advice?
Like
And-
to avoidance?
Yeah.
I think because I would never express my needs, that I was like the ideal person for them to date, because it was never like, until you express your needs, that's when it becomes a problem.
Mhm.
So I think as long as I'm okay with like the pace we're going, I think they're happy with it. And then with the disorganized style, once I have an anxious moment, then that's when usually we have a breakdown and split. But so I think because I'm so like hyper independent, it's always them having to come to me. And so I think avoidant actually likes that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You've only dated
I've dated,
avoidance and disorganized?
surprisingly, I think the ex that was an alcoholic actually had a pretty secure attachment style. Just because they're secure doesn't mean they're
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't mean
Doesn't
you
mean
can't
they're
be
good partners.
you're a
Oh
good
my God.
person or you can't be an asshole.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah, fuck secure people.
They're the worst. I'm so glad we're not one of them.
I would like to say
You're identifying as a secure person. I'll get there eventually.
I think it's more percentages wise versus like one over the other.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I would say I'm like, at this point, I would say I'm like 95% secure, and I would say maybe like 5% anxious attachment.
And 0% avoidant.
Yeah, I don't think I'm avoidant at all.
Okay.
I don't think because because with an anxious attachment style, it's like you liking people.
Yeah.
I like people, and I feel like I'm a community driven person.
For me, I feel like what the big difference is the way that you handle emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you experience emotions, you're okay expressing that to people, whereas I would need to decide if that was okay or not.
Yeah. With Ace, he is a little bit more introspective. I'll be like, let's talk about it. Because I think that's still how my anxious attachment style shows up. Because if something happens, I want to talk about it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I understand that not everyone wants to talk about it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
If my partner is willing, it's one of the ways that I can soothe my attachment style and my anxiety. I know that's one thing I can control.
Mm-hmm.
When I would date an avoidant person and they'd be like, I need space, if there was no timeline about when we talk about it, if we were just left in that gray area, that will cause me to spiral. And that would be really bad.
So it's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of times what will happen is everybody knows it's healthy to talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens and I'm in this state and my person that it happened with, the person I'm dating or whatever, my partner, they want to talk about it. So I'll talk about it and we'll have a full discussion. But because I haven't processed everything yet, and days later, I'll be like, wait a minute, like I figured out what was actually bothering me or like what happened here. But I can't express it at that time because I haven't processed it and I don't know. Mm-hmm. So then I have to come back again and bring the story around again because I just don't process it that fast.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. So all this to say, attachment theory is a tool. It's not a label. These are just behavior patterns and not personality traits. They're not things that are set in stone. All of these are qualities that may be considered negative, have the ability to be changed and fixed if you want to work on them. They're not permanent identities. Your attachment style can change over time. And like we just mentioned, you can think of it percentage wise where you're at because you're not limited to one category.
Yeah, I
You
like
can be
that.
multiple. And growth is possible in every attachment style. Just as long as you're aware and you have the intention, that's fine. You don't have to be perfect all the time. Because it's a learned behavior from your family, it's possible that a triggering situation may come up. You don't have to be perfect, but it's good to be able to recognize it.
Yeah, and I think like what most people probably entering a relationship with somebody else want to just know that you're aware of it and that you're working on it, because it's kind of like as you're figuring out a new person or a new partner or even somebody you've already been with, you're still figuring out how to best communicate with them and like what their needs are as a person. And I think this is just another layer of that. And you might know, like, hey, this reaction you just had doesn't really work for me. How can we fix this together, work on this next time so it doesn't play out that way? And I think that's like the healthiest way. Like ideally, like two people come together and continue to grow as people. You're not just like stunted once you get into a relationship with somebody.
Right. Yeah. What do you think would help you feel more secure in a relationship?
I don't know if this is a good answer or not. I think for me, emotional stability, like loyalty and stability is what I would describe it as. And I think that means like that partner showing up and saying like, I'm still here and I'm still in this with you. We're going to work it out together. And I've had people do both since being with my ex. But I think if I'm in a relationship, I want to know that that person is equally invested in it and that they're not going anywhere just because I had an anxious moment or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. That's the crux.
Is that what changed for you though?
No, because mine is the anxious attachment style.
Oh.
I needed to do a lot of work on myself.
Okay.
I needed to work on loving myself and getting to a point where I didn't care if a relationship worked or not because I was happy with who I was and I was okay being alone and I was okay not constantly being in a relationship or seeking that validation from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think yours makes sense. It makes sense for someone with avoidant attachment style for like, I need someone who is going to show up and be consistent because that's essentially what was missing.
Right.
Someone that was not showing up and being consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even think, and I mean, as soon as you explained that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But I was totally like, yeah, same, right? Same for you? No? Okay. That's my problem is I think everyone is operating from the same space that I am. Like, you know, other people are like, I'm the only one like this. I'm like, no, everyone's like me. And then I'm very wrong and I find out this is how I find out through this podcast.
Yay. We all grow together.
Exactly. It's very informative.
So how this shows up in relationships. So like we said, and we've been saying this entire episode, while it is also important to know your attachment style, it's important to understand your partner's attachment style and figure out how that dynamic works together and how that can work best for the both of you. Attachment styles will shape how we experience closeness, handle conflict, and respond to emotional needs. It shapes how we respond to emotional needs.
It makes sense that you would respond to emotional needs in the way that you're interpreting the world. So if for an anxious person, you're going to respond by like being there, trying to, you know, like pull out of the other person what's wrong and what they need. If you're avoidant, you don't really know how to respond to the emotional needs. So even if you want to, you're not really sure what to do. So that makes sense too.
Yeah. You can feel different attachment styles with different people. It could also be romantic and platonic too. Relationships can activate or soothe your patterns. You haven't really dated anyone that has a secure attachment, right? You said it's mostly
not
anxious and avoidant.
I've not even met somebody with a secure attachment style in the dating scene since my divorce.
That makes sense.
Yeah, never heard of them. No, I don't know anyone that's seen one.
So the study that I was looking up says like 66% of people report being securely attached. I was like,
they're not unhinged.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know.
No way in hell. If socially men are being told like, keep your emotions in. And
yeah, I can tell you exactly where this stat is coming from because I've had 2 different male friends take this attachment quiz because they don't know what I'm talking about. So then I'm like, take the quiz. And then they take it and it comes up secure. And I'm like, there is no fucking world that you're secure. And they're like, well, no, I didn't answer like how I'm in my relationship now, but like, how I am. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is. It's how you are now in a relationship. So people are lying on the test. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then I think early on, it is easy to fake being secure, especially if you're avoidant.
Yeah.
And then you have to like really find the clues about what happened in the person's life in their past. And, they might be like, I have a great relationship with my family. And so you're like, okay, this sounds secure. Great. All of this is, going well. And then they're avoidant, so I think it's easy to just disguise early on.
Yeah. I think it's funny that everyone that's lying on the test is like, I'm basing off the person I want to be.
Yeah.
Who the person that
classic
I am
men,
now.
like having an inflated view of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Dynamic matters, not just the label.
That's a really cute picture.
Thanks. If you take one thing away from this lesson, what is it?
That not everyone is the same as me. No, I think it was very informative. I learned a lot. It is also encouraging to know that like there's reasons that you respond the way that you do to certain things, that different people are going to bring out different sides of you, and that you can also like grow and change and work on that. I think those are like really positive things, and it's comforting to hear like, oh, I'm not like so screwed up. This is a natural thing that happens to people. All of that just is really positive to know that you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Everyone.
And again, you can blame your parents as long as you do something about it now.
And don't be like bitter about it, because that's not fun.
Yeah. Because to be securely attached, you have to think positively about your childhood, or at least appreciative.
I'm so glad I saw my dad hit my mom. That wasn't me, but I'm not saying that my dad never hit my mom. But that note on there, I was like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. Like watching a parent be abused by another parent could obviously result in that specific attachment style.
Right.
Then, it's a cycle, right? Like your generational trauma theory was very interesting.
All right. That's it for today, class. Have any questions about human sexuality? You can submit it anonymously using the link in the show notes. If this episode helped you understand something a little better, share it with a friend, because the best way to destigmatize sex is to talk about it. And follow the show to stay updated on future lessons. And if you want to go deeper, you can grab the Essential Sex Conversations workbook by joining the newsletter. See you in the next lesson. Bye.
Bye.